Good morning, guys. I haven't posted on here in a while, and I'm here with the 2019 Impala, which I still haven't gotten around to making an introduction video of. Hopefully I can, become more active back on this platform again and get involved with you guys and get back to enjoying everything that we've enjoyed in the past. I thought I'd make a video this morning about a really weird condition that this car had, despite it being great for me these handful of years that I've had it. This is the first time this car is really, or it had thrown me a curveball. So about a week ago, I went to start this car and leave for work. And when I got in the car and started it up, engine turned over, and dash lights came on, everything appeared normal, no fault messages. The trunk opened up. The trunk opened up. And I thought, well, maybe I just didn't latch it correctly. Maybe that's my mistake. Or it was just some, 1 in a million intermittent condition to where the latch just released. And I came back here thinking that I was just going to shut it and be on my way. With the car still idling, I tried to shut the trunk, and the trunk would not close at all. It would just rebound up and up and up. And I also noticed too that when the male end of the latch would strike the receiver, that the latch would click violently until I immediately let off the trunk, and it would rebound up and it would shut up. And the only way I could get the trunk to close was by shutting the car off to where, not idling, no power accessory. Then I could come back here, close the trunk. It would be nice and flush with the body. I could pull up on it all I wanted, and it was secured closed. Like it appeared as it should. But anytime I went to start the car, even if I went to remote start it, anytime I went to start the car, the trunk would open. And so I thought I'd dabble in some troubleshooting with this and try to figure this out. And what I came to learn about this was when you depress the push button release, because these cars do not have this generation of Impala, which runs 2014 through 2020. These cars do not have mechanical exterior latches. They're electronic push buttons just above the plate there. When you push that button, or if you push the interior release button for the trunk, which should be located just in this module right here on this car. It's this button here. It depends on what equipment your vehicle came equipped with, but they're all, roughly in the same location. But when you press this release button for the trunk, or you press the button on the trunk lid itself to command the latch open, that allows current to be sent through the applicable fuse here under the hood to the trunk latch relay that you should hear click when it functions normally. And that current gets sent at some point through the body control module, the BCM, and then goes back and commands the trunk to be open. So I thought, well, we'll start with the easy stuff. And I went ahead and found the fuse for the trunk latch. And at least in the 2019s, I'd like to think it's the same for all the 14s to 20s. But in the 2019s, it's specifically fuse number 66, which is one of the 5 amp ones down here in the lower right. I checked the condition of that fuse. It looked fine. I also noticed too that when I could get the trunk closed and I would hit the release button on the trunk lid or the release switch in the car, that I could hear the relay click. So I knew the relay was functioning as it should. And at that point, I then changed out this latch actuator, or this latch solenoid as they call it. It's an electronic unit that takes up just the bulk of this square area right above the latch itself. I found that locally. The prices for those varied wildly, but I just went ahead and bought local just to see if it would work. I put the new part in, and the new part repeated the exact same condition. So then I thought it must not be the latch solenoid, and I narrowed it down, or I thought I had narrowed it down to two things. I figured it either had to be an issue with the body control module, the computer that oversees all the interconnectivity with this circuit from front to back, or it was a wiring fail, that there was wire damage of some kind. And so I got online and tried to see if anyone else had reported this same condition. And I really struggled to find anybody that had experienced or was experiencing the same thing. The only report that I found, that I can't cite off the top of my head where it was from, the only report that I found online was someone that chimed in and said that they had experienced a coolant leak that led to the carpeting in the driver's footwell to be soaked with fluid, and that somehow led to the area that the BCM hides in is roughly behind this trim, just to in a general sense, that fluid intrusion led to the BCM getting wet and causing that erratic latch function, which I thought was a really interesting idea. But this car had no traces of anything like that happening. I really couldn't find any water intrusion or water damage anywhere in any of the interior. All the drains in the doors, in the trunk, and all the sheet metal is nice and clean, nice and clear. So I really didn't suspect water at the BCM to be the problem. So I thought to myself, well, is it an issue with the BCM, with the computer itself, or is it an issue with the wiring, the physical characteristics of the wiring? So eventually, long story short, I ruled out that it was not the BCM faulting. It wasn't necessarily a software problem, nor was it the computer just having physical damage. There was no other fault conditions with this car, no other abnormalities, nothing weird going on. Everything else was completely normal, operating as it should, except for the trunk latch. So then that led me on a chase for the wiring. And roughly the path that it takes is from the BCM down there in the driver's footwell. It'll ride on the lower part of the door frames through the cabin structure, and then it comes up where the rear seat bench is roughly, and it'll pass through that section. And from this point, between the BCM and this point, that wiring bundle is fixed. It should have no reason to move unless you're driving your vehicle over bumpy roads, just beating the hell out of it on potholes, or if you're kicking your interior panels a lot, or if there's a lot of foot traffic coming in and out of the car, that's really just giving that flooring hell. I really wouldn't, I have a hard time believing that the wire bundle that's in a fixed spot, that's secured down, would be moving or chafing or tearing in any kind of way. So I thought it had to be in the section of the car that experiences all the movement. And so after I had pointed out behind the C-pillar where that wiring then exits, where it stays in a fixed bundle, and it comes through underneath the rear glass. There's the rear bench seat pass through. Behind that carpeted interior panel, that wire bundle will come up, and the path that it takes is, on these cars, these trunk supports, or the trunk frame that holds it up, these are hollow. These tubular supports are hollow. And so that wire bundle comes up the back and snakes inside, it sleeves inside this trunk support, goes up behind this carpeted interior panel, and roughly starts branching out about, towards the center. And the components that wire bundle that goes through here feeds are your auxiliary taillights, left and right, your the license plate vanity lights, the rear view camera, that I'm not sure if every one of these cars is equipped with, but if it was optional equipment, if you have that, that's also included in the wire bundle, and the trunk latch. So we took a look at the wiring and found that inside this tubular arm, this radius, this curve that wire bundle has to bend and make, along with all the cycles of open, close, open, close, open, close, that wire bundle had been chafing itself. Even though that bundle is a grouping of, I believe it's 5 or 6 wires total that have environmental wrap, black environmental wrap on top of them, and then that standard corrugated plastic hose material sleeved on top of that black wire jacket, and then it goes inside of here. All of that motion, open and closed, and I'm sure the vehicle going down the road and vibrating and age and heat cycles, since this car does see winter, so, you know, summer hot, winter cold, just broke down that wiring. And sure enough, when I undid that jacket, found that the wires for the vanity lights for the license plate, the 2 white vanity lights, and the wire for my trunk latch had actually, with each cycle of the trunk coming open, were chafing against each other. And on their sides, where they met, it rubbed it down to bare copper. So that meant that every time this car was started, that power was put to the vanity lights, because I was testing this car in this garage with less of the lighting on. So the car thought that it was in darkness, and so naturally it turned the plate lights on, as it should. Plate lights should have been on normally. But every time there was power put to those plate lights upon engine start, either by the key or with the push button, like I would normally start the car, that power to those lights backfed current into that latch and was able to open the trunk, which definitely was the case, because at one point during my troubleshooting, I had taken the related trunk latch fuse out and I had disconnected the interior push button, thinking that maybe, the interior push button might be stuck. Or not stuck, but the BCM may have been interpreting the interior push button as being in a stuck position or a depressed position. And so I disconnected the switch and the fuse, and still I was getting the trunk open. So that made complete sense, that the power from those lights was backfeeding into that latch. So all these accessories, like I said, the auxiliary taillights, the rear view camera, the plate lights, and the latch all share a wire bundle that goes through this structure, and that I learned has the ability to chafe itself, and that current going to any of those components can interfere with the others. In fact, I found that the wire leading to my rear view camera was the next one on the chopping block, that one was in really poor shape too. The wiring was repaired, additional environmental wrap was put on it, new jacket was sleeved over the wire bundle, and everything was put back together. But in order to get access to that, even if you just replace the latch actuator like I did, you're going to need to take off this interior panel, which is just held on by these standard plastic, these black plastic push button, these push tab fasteners, that are acorny on the back side, is that real cheap plastic stuff. You need to pop those out. You can beat them up if you've got replacements, rip them out. Just don't destroy your interior panel just for looks, and it does make up for some kind of sound deadening too while driving. The rubber stops, there's 2 of them that contact the receiving end that cushion the trunk a little bit. When you close it, you're going to need to take those off. They just slide about an inch over, and then they pull out. There's nipples on the back of them that ride on a track. Just slide either of them in, maybe half an inch to an inch, and they should just pull right out, no problem. There's a dust cover on the male end of the latch that's just held in with 2 tabs. You can just pull this off by hand, should be no problem. Even if you were to break this part, honestly, it's more, like I said, it's more of an aesthetic part and a dust cover more than anything. The latch will still function without this plastic cover on. If you do buy a new latch actuator somewhere in your own troubleshooting, or if that is just the sole problem with your car, be sure to save this emergency glow-in-the-dark release handle and the cable that attaches it to the latch, because I found whether you buy it online or you buy it at a local store, if you get a new latch actuator or a new latch solenoid, as they call it, this emergency release handle and its cable do not come with the replacement. You're going to want to save this if you ever do replace it. And then the last thing you'll have to take off from the trunk lid is the pull down handle here. And you might be able to see in this channel, there's a cover that hides one single screw in the very middle. I forget the size off the top of my head. It might be an 8mm. It's definitely metric, but as long as you have a metric set quarter drive, you should be fine. There's a relief on this panel on the left side that you can put a flathead screwdriver in and just pry it out. This relief panel will come open, it'll swing open, and then the screw will be dead center in this handle, and then it'll pull right out with just one screw, and you just pull this handle out, no issue. And then I'd also suggest taking off the headliner in the trunk. Same thing. It's got about maybe, I think, 6 of those black plastic push fasteners that you take out. And then the dome light just has a single coiled wire connection. You just need to disconnect that plug and make sure that's out of the way so you don't tear that wire for the dome light out when you take this whole headliner panel off. And then you'll get that side interior panel off to get to the wire bundle. And honestly, it's worth looking at the wiring where it goes up into the rear seat to make sure you don't have anything strange going on in that run between the bottom of the support and the back of the seat. Same thing, black push fasteners, and that whole thing will come out no problem. It takes some wiggling around to get, and especially when you put it back together, it's a little bit of a puzzle piece, but it's really not that bad. But yeah, the wiring was to blame for that. And fortunately, except for a little bit of experience of wiring repair, if you don't already have it, tools needed for this really weren't that bad. Generic, this is my garbage pick set that I have at the house from Harbor Freight. I leave my good ones at work and then end up buying stuff like this just to have around. But I use this to get a handful of the electrical connectors out, either from the interior switch or the latch actuator itself. It's really good tools to have. A nice, smooth, pretty forgivable, flexible plastic scraper or pry tool is what helped me get the switch module out of the dash to help isolate that from the problem. I just went around the perimeter of that module really carefully and just walked it out slowly. Didn't make sure you don't pull on anything too hard. You don't want to break any of the tab. You don't want to break any of the tabs or the retention hardware that keeps that module in there. For the latch solenoid or the latch actuator, when you finally get this carpet out and you get the release handle pulled off and all this stuff out of the way, it's held in with 3 screws. You're going to need a T27 Torx bit. I've got a socket, but whatever you got, if you have an Allen of it, then who cares? But yeah, T27 is going to be the size that you need Torx to get that off with. And then the only other thing I found that was really helpful was one of these fastener removal tools that kind of a pseudo screwdriver look to it, but that forked end really helps pry a lot of those interior fasteners off if you intend on saving any of them. That's definitely a big thing. But yeah, that concludes with a little bit of the advice and suggestion I have on this. Like I said, there was really nothing in the online community that I was looking through when I was trying to troubleshoot this within the first day of having this problem. Couldn't really find anybody that was reporting the same condition. Saw a lot of people saying that they couldn't get the trunk open, the opposite of what I had going on, but nothing about the trunk not closing. So I really hope this helps. If anybody has questions about this, feel free to leave some comments. Hopefully I'll be around to answer anything to the best of my ability. And I do have some wiring diagrams related to the system. I mean, not a lot, just 2 sheets, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, I might be able to babble off some of this as well. And like I said, I really owe this car. It's except for this hiccup. And this has been the first thing that it's given me trouble on. I've had this car for almost 5 years now, 94,000 miles, and it's done great. This trunk issue is the first thing I've had to deal with that was out of routine maintenance, and I look forward to posting a full, comprehensive video of this car and showcasing what it is and giving you guys an update. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.